Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're diving into a really powerful idea from a devotional text, the concept of divine provision, especially for those times when life feels, completely uncertain. We're going to unpack a pretty surprising story about finding peace right in the middle of a crisis and the core belief that actually makes that possible.
So, our story kicks off at a time I'm sure many of us remember, and maybe not so fondly, the 2009 financial crisis. It was just this time of widespread anxiety, people were losing their jobs, and it really felt like the ground was shifting under everyone's feet. And it's right in the middle of all this that the author of our source text finds herself facing her own personal financial disaster. And this is where it gets really interesting. Right in the middle of a global recession, right after getting laid off, the author says her main feelings were a mix of anxiety and relief. And on top of that, this deep trust that everything was going to work out. I mean, that is a completely counterintuitive reaction, right? And the text uses this exact moment to set up its entire premise. So let's unpack this a little more. In this first section, we're going to explore the story, this crisis that was met with a really odd sense of peace, and what that actually looked like day to day. And this calm wasn't just some fleeting feeling. It went deep. I mean, just think about it. She had moved 900 miles for this specific job she just lost, and yet her sense of peace was so obvious that one of her friends didn't even believe her when she told her she'd been laid off. On a practical level, she kept all her commitments. Her landlord never even knew she was out of work because the rent always showed up right on time. And the outcome of her journey? Just as surprising as her reaction. The whole period of uncertainty was incredibly short. In just 3 months, she was rehired by the exact same company, but this time with a raise. Now, the text is really clear about this. This isn't presented as just good luck, but as a perfect example of an unexpected, positive resolution. Okay, so that just begs the question, right? Where did this calm confidence come from? Let's jump into the next section and see how the devotional builds its case for the belief that was really driving things behind the scenes. This verse from the biblical book of Philippians is basically the cornerstone of the entire text. It's a direct promise that a person's needs will be met. And according to the devotional, we're not just talking about a nice, feel-good sentiment here. It's an active principle that the author was literally banking on during her unemployment. So this brings us to the core definition of God as provider. The text frames it as a belief in a promise that your needs will be met, but often in surprising ways that are almost designed to build your trust. It makes a direct connection between the what, the provision, and the how, fostering your faith along the way. But is this just some modern idea? Well, to answer that, the text actually looks way back in history. It points to this ancient model of trust, using some pretty key figures to show that this principle has really deep roots. So what the devotional does is draw this direct line between two central figures in Christianity. It points out that both the Apostle Paul and Christ, despite how influential they were, owned very little. They basically operated on a model of reliance, depending on the generosity and hospitality of other people to meet their daily needs for food and a place to sleep. And this is where the text introduces this fascinating, super countercultural idea, what it calls the gospel's upside-down economy. I mean, think about it. We live in a world that prizes self-sufficiency and independence, right? So dependence is almost always seen as a weakness. But here, it gets completely reframed as a strength, a conscious choice to trust that provision will come from outside of yourself. This is presented as a core part of the faith, and it just completely flips our modern values on their head. Okay, so this leads us to a part of the argument that's a little more subtle. The devotional starts to suggest that our typical definition of provision might just be a little too small. It's about way more than just paying the bills. To make this point, the text shares another story, and this one is even more dramatic. The need is immediate and very specific, a plane ticket for an interview. The author begins to pray about it, and the timing here is the key detail. While she is literally still on her knees praying, her phone rings. It's a friend who works for an airline calling completely out of the blue, and they arrange a free ticket. The whole story is set up just to highlight that seemingly impossible timing. So, of course, this leads to a pretty big question. Is this whole belief system just some kind of transactional deal to get what you want? You ask and you receive? Well, the devotional argues no, that's not the main point at all. And here it is, the core argument. The ultimate provision isn't the plane ticket or the job with a raise. It's the internal provision, the peace and the assurance you feel.
It's that feeling of knowing you can count on that support, no matter what the physical outcome is. The true gift, the text argues, is the peace, not the thing. And to cap it all off, the devotional adds one final layer, quoting another biblical verse. It suggests that not only will your needs be met, but the outcomes can be way bigger than anything you could ever hope for or even imagine. The message is to stay open to surprise, because the solution might look nothing like what you had in mind. All right, let's bring this home with our final section, which is all about how to actually apply this stuff. The devotional doesn't just throw these ideas out there, it actually turns them into practical questions for the reader to really engage with. So the text asks you to really consider this. How can I actually communicate that I need help in this specific area of my life? It shifts the focus from just passively believing to actively communicating. The idea is that just the act of saying you need help is a huge step of humility and trust. And to help with that, the text offers up this simple, direct affirmation you can use. This is presented as a tool, something to reinforce that core belief and remind yourself of the promise, especially when you're feeling doubt or anxiety. It's just a simple statement of faith.
And this is where our explainer leaves us, with this final, really provocative question from the text. It challenges you to identify that one deep-seated desire you've kind of written off as impossible, and to maybe reconsider it through this lens, a belief where provision can be so much more than you ask or even imagine. A pretty powerful thought to sit with. Thanks for joining me.